Hi everyone, and welcome back to Deck Tech. This week we've got the brand new Inteleon VMAX from Fusion Strike on deck, and boy, gotta tell you, you are not going to make any friends playing on the expanded ladder with this deck. I honestly think that more than Coalossal VMAX, Inteleon VMAX is the poster boy for why healing is straight up busted when played alongside VMAXs. But, you know, before we dive into the really broken combos therein, I would love it if you guys could take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are closing in on the big 500 here, and nothing would make me happier if we can close out the year by hitting that particular milestone. So, you know, take a second, hit the sub, and I guess click that bell because apparently notifications are notifications are a bit whack on YouTube. Now then, why is Inteleon VMAX so busted? Well, the bustedness starts with the fact that it's got a healthy 320 HP and a single attack on this card. So Gmax Spiral costs 1 water and 1 colorless energy, and it does 70 damage plus 70 more if you return an energy attached to Inteleon to your hand. So the reason or reasons that this is busted are threefold. Number one, you can pay for this attack in one attachment with a Rapid Strike energy because this Inteleon VMAX is a Rapid Strike Pokemon. 2, returning the energy to hand means that it can't be discarded by the effects of your opponent's cards or yours. And 3, pretty much every healing card that wipes off any significant amount of damage requires that you discard energy attached to the Pokemon you're healing. But one particular distinction is that it's not mandatory to have energy attached to discard. They just discard whatever is already attached. So a card like Max Potion means that you fully heal yourself for free because you bounce that energy back to your hand the previous turn, and then you can just reattach that energy and keep trucking along. So basically, unless your opponent can block all healing with something like Dynatree or that Mimikyu from Darkness Ablaze, or, you know, if they can hit you for weakness, there's just no way otherwise to OHKO this Inteleon VMAX. Now, you combine that with a healthy count of Max Potions and Cheryls, and suddenly you have a 3-prize monster that your opponent cannot remove from the board. Oh, and it can discard water energy to get a bit of snipe damage on the bench too, which is nice but not super relevant in this particular deck anyway. Now, to keep this deck running, we're actually going to rely on the Inteleon engine, which definitely is more popular in Standard, but it's got a lot of synergy here because, you know, most of the pieces are Rapid Strike Pokemon and Water Pokemon at that, so you share a lot of your search options. And the only other cut I made here was that I really couldn't find room for a Shady Dealings Inteleon because it was just clogging up the hand a little bit too much. But the two quick shooting ones should suffice alongside Scoop Up Net to kind of recycle your Drizziles as needed. And then there's a 1/1 Rapid Strike Octillery line to help you fetch your combo pieces and basically, you know, more than anything, ensure that you always have access to Rapid Strike energy, despite all the Ns and Marnies that your opponents will be hurling at you in Expanded. Our Pokeball package consists of Dive Ball, Level Ball, and Ultra Ball, which basically ensures that you have full access to whatever you want whenever you want it. Usually, you know, you're going to be turning your Dive Ball into a Drizzile, you know, same with your Level Ball, and that Drizzile in turn turns into a Max Potion. That's kind of what you're doing here with this deck. The physical supporter lineup is pretty thin, but I think we can actually get away with that because our Inteleon engine can usually fetch whatever we want anyways, and paired along with Versus Seeker, you know, you tend to be able to chain together whatever supporters you need turn after turn after turn, although honestly most of the time it's going to be Cheryl. Scoop Up Net, like mentioned before, and Scoop Up Cyclone provide us with a little bit of mobility, which kind of eliminates the need for float stones in this deck, and more importantly than not, allows us to reuse our Drizziles in this deck, which is really nice. You can even reuse your quick shooting Inteleons, basically scooping one up, placing it on a new Drizzile, and getting an extra 20 damage ping, which is kind of cool. And then the only other thing worth mentioning here is the 4 silent labs that we run. Big thanks to my Twitter peeps for recommending this card, because, you know, all of our Pokemon with abilities are evolution Pokemon, so this more or less turns into a one-sided ability lock, and actually makes it damn near impossible to try and record any good games for this episode. Because believe me, this bodies a lot of the meta decks in Expanded, and combined with nearly infinite healing, it has led to a lot of rage quits on my opponent's side during testing. But anyways, that's the deck, and now that you've got a good idea of how it works in general, let's dive into the one veritable marathon of a game that I did manage to snag on the Expanded ladder. Okay everyone, we are heading into what ended up being an absolute grind fest of a game on the Expanded ladder here. I kind of got a taste of my own medicine, not gonna lie. I wasn't expecting to run into something like this while playing with Inteleon VMAX, but I mean, hey, I guess karma is a thing, and someone really needed to force me to take my own medicine. So anyway, heading on into this game, I'm off to a kind of rough start. It's never great to have to go second with this deck because there's not much for you to do going second, but in this particular case it actually ended up being okay because I don't have a lot to work with in hand as is, so the ability to go for the keep calling here is just really nice. It's going to ensure that I've at least got most of my little rapid strike guys in play, and later on when my board starts to stabilize, I'll be able to do something with them. Although it is a risky play as well, because seeing the telescopic sight on my opponent Sandaconda, I know that they're going to be playing Sandaconda VMAX, which means that spread damage, and a ton of it, is about to be in my future. And obviously I just put down a bunch of vulnerable little bench sitters. So, kind of a risk, but one I felt I really had to take at the time in order to prevent, myself losing outright. Now the situation is still not great. I have no draw supporter, I don't have any ball surge in hand, so I can't get to my combo pieces. So there is actually a chance my opponent can just beat me in the face and punch through my first Inteleon, and then, from there, it is mostly just a matter of wiping up the bench with that spread damage as required. Now that said, I do have an ace in the hole here. I do run Cheryl, so as long as I'm able to get to it, I can basically erase all of the damage done to my evolution Pokemon in play at least. So that's something I'm going to count on and pray that I can get to. And at the very least, my opponent decided to go a little aggro and go for the G-Max Cyclone here, allowing me to finally play down one max potion and fully heal up. So, I can buy myself a little bit more time, and finally getting access to the Drizzile means that I can kind of get myself back in this game thanks to the N. And I'm also going to throw this Sobble down here. Again, it's a little bit risky to put soft, easy targets for Sandaconda down, but I need to get myself chaining Drizziles as much as possible to make sure that, again, my board kind of stabilizes and that I'm able to fetch the stuff I need to really, make the most of Inteleon VMAX's degenerate strategy. And I just go for a big hit here. I'm threatening the KO on the next turn, which is always great. My opponent goes for the Hypnotoxic Laser, which was a bit of a surprise, but it's Expanded. You can run into just about anything. And then they go for the Mallow and Lana for the big heal, so I immediately understand what kind of deck I'm up against. Their strategy, as opposed to mine, which is just bouncing the energy over and over, hitting one thing for big damage and healing, their thing is I'm going to spread like crazy, heal up, and then if I need to, punch you in the face for a big hit to take the KO. So, similar play styles being enacted here, at least the whole damage denial and healing thing. But I think as long as I'm fairly conservative in how I use my heals, I can definitely kind of grind this game out. Now, the big thing I was doing here was chaining together my evolutions, because at the very end of this, I wanted to grab the Cheryl and do a play that definitely made a vein pop in my opponent's forehead. And in hindsight after, I actually could have evolved up the Inteleon V on the bench before to heal it up, but heat of the moment, and I still felt really good about healing off all that other damage. And now I have one of my quick shooting Inteleons in play, so I can start applying a bit more pressure with that. And the nice thing about that Inteleon in particular is that it can kind of help me deal with the stone fighting energies, which are already really reducing my damage output. And, the more of those that mass on Sandaconda, the closer, I have to push for like a 4 KO as opposed to a 3-hit KO, let's say. Now, my opponent drops the first of their max potions, and at that point I knew exactly, yeah, like, oh, okay, they're pulling the same kind of shenanigans I am, so I'm going to be in for a really, really long game here. I'm going to have to fight to take all 6 of those prizes, believe me. And, in this particular situation, this is one of those windows where the game could swing. At this particular point in time, I don't have access to any healing cards, and I didn't want to risk getting rid of the Rapid Strike energy in hand in order to go for the heal, right? Because if I did that, there was a fairly good chance that I would have whiffed the energy, and then, that's just not great either. I really do need to be attacking to at least force my opponent to use their healing cards, so I took the risk. I went for the Guzma, and I said, they need to have the Gust, basically, in order to KO my benched Inteleon VMAX. And as long as I can get access to a Cheryl, I can basically wipe off this damage and put myself in a much better situation. And for their part, they're content to just keep hitting in, threatening the 2-hit KO themselves. They've kind of given up, at least for now, on the prospect of, going for the spread damage here. And thankfully that VS Seeker off the top really makes my job a lot easier. So I can just heal everything and start double quick shooting here, which will let me finally take some prizes off of my board. It's really good too to get rid of that Sandaconda, because one route now, at least for the time being, that I've cut off is the opponent's ability to scoop them up and then immediately replace them with another Sandaconda VMAX. And then here, actually, my opponent decides to max potion all of that energy away to totally heal up their Sandaconda VMAX, and then they smack me with the Marnie, which is not great because I've lost most of my really valuable resources, and now with not much else to do, they kind of have to go back to, spreading damage around. For my part, though, this is why I play Octillery instead of maybe the Evolution Starmie to get back water energy for sniping. I just think it's more valuable to be able to grab that Rapid Strike energy when your opponent disrupts their hand. Because this is one of the ways that your opponent can actually beat you, right? If, you can heal every turn, that's fine, but if you're not advancing your board state by dealing any damage, then your opponent can actually eventually overcome you. Like, you will run out of max potions and Cheryls, or, max potions and VS Seekers for the Cheryls, right? So I still need to be pressing my advantage by attacking over and over and over again. So in this particular case, yeah, the the appearance of that Marnie is troubling, but again, I've got the Octillery in place to make the most of it. And then my opponent computer searched for the N there, which is going to put me in an even rougher spot here, because not much I'm doing with Pokemon Ranger, and I do not have any Inteleon pieces that I can evolve up, right? I don't, as I mentioned in the deck profile, play the Shady Dealings Inteleon, so I'm not too sure what I'm going to be able to do here in order to grab the heal. My opponent is certainly threatening a KO at this point, and if they have any way to cheat some energy into play, then I am in a pretty sore spot. And, while the 10 damage from that Hypnotoxic Laser is not much, it is still annoying and something I have to watch out for, because it does certainly change the math in this scenario, right? Going for that G-Max Cyclone there, they don't... Well, I guess at this point, yeah, they do have the KO, actually, thanks to the poison damage racking up. So, it basically forces me to heal a little earlier, and sadly, Cheryl and Max Potion do not remove status effects. And now my opponent is going to start with the Acerola shenanigans, basically taking that Sandaconda VMAX off the board, but because they just had to bench the other Sandaconda V, they weren't able to basically evolve this new one back up and then start attacking again, which means that I bought myself some precious time. And now here, what I'm going to do is try and push for the KO. I am going to do the double quick shooting. I'm just going to Field Blower away that path to the peak, because I don't want to have Field Blower in the deck anymore. I don't particularly care if they're going to do the extra 20 with, the help of Diancie there, because I'm just going to be healing everything off. I have to, or I'm in a really rough spot. And then what I'm going to do here actually is I'm going to scoop up one of the Drizziles, and then, or one of the Inteleons, I should say, and then re-evolve one of the Drizziles into the Inteleon just to steal a little extra damage and let me put down that Sobble, so that in the next turn, basically, I have access to the Drizzile to search for, you know, ideally a VS Seeker for the Cheryl, because my evolutions are starting to get a little bit damaged by the spread, right? And at this point, like, I can continuously threaten the KO, or at least the 2-hit KO over and over again. My opponent has to know what's up, and at this point, they scoop. So, talk about getting a taste of your own medicine, man. I was not expecting Sandaconda VMAX to play like that, but apparently it's pretty common knowledge that 3 prizers and max potion go together like bacon and cheeseburgers. And, you know, kudos to my opponent for playing something novel like that on the expanded ladder. That deck certainly had the means to apply a ton of pressure early on, and the kind of unconventional nature of the deck had me guessing the whole time. Like hammers, lasers, Acerola, the schoolgirl draw supporter. Like, bruh, what? But it all kind of worked. And there was a computer search and a full art N in there, so like I'm a believer that homeboy was serious. But you know, still at the end of the day, if you can't KO Inteleon VMAX, it ain't going anywhere. I wasn't joking when I made the thumbnail for this video. Inteleon is practically immortal when supported properly. And it really makes you think that this game isn't being balanced for expanded at all, because stuff like this is kind of degenerate when the numbers involved are so, well, huge. Gardevoir GX could kind of pull off something similar back in the day, but there were ways of dealing with that, and, you know, it did come at some cost to the Guardy player, so it's definitely not the same thing. And, you know, this is really, I think, grounds to have a discussion about just, I don't know if we rotate expanded, which would break my heart, or we just take a hard look at the last year or two of the game and go, let's try and forget this ever happened. But anyway, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Rapid Strike Inteleon VMAX. If you enjoyed today's video, then please hit that thumbs up, and if you want to vent about how broken VMAXs are in the comment section below, I certainly would not judge you. And finally, make sure to subscribe, because I've got a few more expanded lists coming down the pipeline before PTCG Live effectively soft rotates the format at the start of 2022, so keep an eye out for those as well. I will catch you all in the next one, and until then, take it easy.